What sets an extraction game apart from a battle royale isn't its camera, its gunplay, or its healing systems. It's the items. There are games like Hunt Showdown or Beautiful Light that are more objective focused, but put those aside, this video is about loot-based extraction games. And to a major degree, these games are about the loot. That feeling when you find the thing you need, when you shoot a guy and he's absolutely loaded. Oh my god, he's so loaded, he's so loaded, he's so loaded. Dude, he's so loaded, he's so loaded. That's a big part of why people come back to these games, even when they rip you off and don't function in DMCA mod videos with copyright strikes. Oh, I guess only one of them does that. But despite the importance of these economies, they tend to have a lot of the same shortcomings as each other. Before we get to that though, we need to know what the point is. What are the goals of an extraction economy? Extraction shooters from the outset took the formula of battle royale games and asked a simple question. How can we make you even more invested in the gear you find? This is desire. For an economy in a game like this to be good, you need to desire the things that you find. It gets you in raids and it gets you hyped when you find something you need, or maybe even better, want.
I'll take that.
Oh my god, Beef, we need to leave.
Why?
I got red keycard.
Sweet Jesus.
You want the economy to reward good performance. If you do a good job or fight off a horde of enemies, the player will expect to be rewarded for that effort, as well they should, or else the incentives will start to separate from the fun. You don't want everyone to forcefully grind a boring part of the game while ignoring the fun part. And at the ground level, the fun part of the game has to be the gameplay. PUBG Black Budget has a ton of out-of-raid progression systems and genuinely innovative additions to the extraction shooter genre, but nobody wants to play it because the gameplay fucking sucks.
Here we go with the stock MPX. It's an SMG. Should be controllable, right? Here we go. Straight to the moon.
Conversely, economy and quest and progression are there to stack on top of the gameplay, to add meta consequences past what's currently happening. The more these two things can move in harmony and affect each other, the more satisfying they're going to be. But it's not just wanting more gear. They just be looter shooters then. There's another side to the coin. You lose the gear too. Reward at the cost of risk. How novel. Now when you see a guy run past or hear gunfire in the distance, you have a choice. Do I keep going and keep what I have, or do I throw my dick on the table, my gear on black, and try to hit it big? You know the deal. Knowing you can lose your stuff means it hits harder when you find more. God, I love gambling. Speaking of gambling, you also want a golden mean of predictability and randomness. Some degree of randomness is important to stop every play session from playing out exactly the same, as everyone runs to the same spot to shove flash drives up their ass. But when you have a tough fight, that performance should be consistently rewarded. We'll get to examples, but killing a juiced up guy and leaving his stuff on the ground feels bad. And of course it does. Effort for the sake of effort isn't going to be fun. Mario without a star isn't as good as Mario with a star. You need a light at the end of the tunnel. So how does this tie into the economy? Well, if the items are too hard to obtain, you won't want to use them. And if they're too easy to get, they lose their value, meaning losing them doesn't mean anything to you at all. Then there's more meta stuff. Like a real economy, you generally want ups and downs that overall trend up. If all you do is win and the numbers just climb up, there's no tension or investment since you just grind repeatedly into oblivion. And at that point, you're better off with something more session-based, like a battle royale or something. On the other hand, if you're so oppressed by the economy that you can't function, you're just going to quit and play something else. Obviously, player skill in the gameplay is going to play a big role here.
It's unplayable. There's no way you can control your bullets.
But the idea that this will be the case is still important. If my references to real economies are bouncing around in that noggin of yours, you may be thinking, but if the line's going up over time, won't that lead to inflation? We'll get there, hold on. Here's an underrated one. Variety. Everyone running the same stuff is boring. Obviously, with how social media interacts with games, there's gonna be a meta. But since extraction games have another lever they can balance with, they can have greater variety in weapon stats and the likes, and some degree of imbalance or variety in use case can be priced in. This variety applies to the player performance point, since the format allows for variety in equipment, goals, and tactics. The more types of things there are to get, the more likely someone doesn't need the objectively most valuable thing, and the places people go and what they do become less predictable and more satisfying. So if those are the goals, then what are the problems? In order to make that cock statue or cool armor or giant ruby valuable, you need lesser items to sift through in order to make them valuable by comparison. That isn't to say many items have no use at all, but very quickly there are large swaths of items that are to be completely ignored and discarded no matter what, which makes their inclusion pretty redundant, and that's due to what I'm going to call the loot money gear cycle. The system also invalidates most items under some arbitrary value. Maybe it's 8k per slot or 10 or 20, but at this point you're not a scavenger anymore, you're an encyclopedia of market number values. A robot can loot for you. There's no decision to make except how granularly you want to bother doing the math and how many of the numbers you can recall off the top of your head. That's not to say there's not a skill to to it. I've seen some impressive looting over the years, but it's so gamified that it doesn't immerse you in the world. It does the opposite. You're playing a Fallout minigame to turn 132k into 134k when you could be playing the game instead. More importantly, it removes the variety. You aren't looking for what you need, you're picking up coins off the floor. One of the most baseline fun appeals to extraction shooters is pilfering gear. Dropping a guy who's got way better shit than you, grabbing his kit and adding it to your goon cave. But its implementation in most of these games is kind of a nightmare. You kill a guy and then spend the next 12 lunar moon cycles trying to min-max the Tetris game while keeping enough of the cool stuff that you don't feel completely guilty about it. During this effort, you might just get shot and lose it all, but that's part of the risk, so it's justifiable. If you don't die though, you now get to limp slowly to an extract with whatever you could fit with you. Here's the most annoying option. You get in a crazy engagement. Maybe it's you versus an entire squad. You lock in, you drop all of them. Think of the loot. There's 4 bodies here. If you're grabbing guns, you get 2 bodies in and you're pretty much full.
So can I say I did this and I put that there and then I put that there and then I took one of these out and I put that there?
Oh well, time to leave all the valuable shit I earned on the ground, I guess. And all of that's ignoring that looting their gear is probably inefficient anyway. If you're trying to optimize what you get out of a raid, you're gonna try to grab whatever item contains the most value per inventory slot. Guns are cool and exciting to loot, and screws fucking aren't. But here's where the mistake happens. Once you're out of the raid, you can take that screw money and buy a gun. Or medicine, or grenades, whatever you need. A gun is just a gun, and money can be whatever you want it to be. This means a smart player makes the boring choice, and grabs whatever thingy makes bank number go up. There's something wonderfully metaphorical about an arena breakout player grabbing a gun literally made of gold and ripping all the attachments off and throwing it away like they ate an animal and left the bone. When expensive loot items are exceptionally rare, it's a good feeling, but the rest of the time, you're doing busy work to finance kits that let you have fun. Splitting the game down the middle to chore and fun, and never the two shall meet. Now we discuss what makes an economy. Trade. NPC traders allow for converting items into money, and money back into useful items as discussed. This isn't a problem inherently, but it's quickly extremely predictable. Early game, when you find a cool gun, you're excited to use it. Maybe you save it for a bit, maybe you try to snowball with the increased firepower. That's dynamic, that's the soul of these games. I'm taking this thing I have and putting it on the line for something better. Oh, I have 1 grenade? Well, that's what I have, so I guess I'll bring it. Traders are a necessary evil in most of these games, but they are evil. They provide a consistent baseline while you have money, and while consistency means less frustration from missing things, it also means less variety and more predictability. When I found my first M4 in Tarkov back in 2019 or whenever it was, I was so hyped. Just the opportunity to use the thing was an event to me. Then I brought it into factory and died in 90 seconds. That might sound like a bad thing, but the fact that I can recall that 6 years later means it mattered to me. And that's what's cool about this stuff. When I can just pick up 30 loose items on the ground and they transform into an M4, that feeling is gone. Unlimited supply compromises value. That's not to say traders need to go, but in my opinion, their role in games like these is way too broad. The finding cool things part of these games shouldn't be limited to glowing menu icons that create big money number. Then there's the next level, flea markets. This one's a bit of a rabbit hole, and I'll try not to dig too deep and find a body or something. Some games have player-to-player trading where the players set the prices and players decide when and what to buy from each other. This has some obvious benefits. In games with this much RNG, sometimes you just do not get the thing you need despite your best efforts. Getting stuck through no fault of your own with no solution but head against wall grinding feels bad. Flea markets solve that, along with balancing the economy among actual supply and demand. Since real players selling items they really value creates the same market demands as an actual market. What it doesn't do is maintain a sense of progression. ABI plays fairly normally for an extraction shooter until you get an okay foundation of money behind you. Then it's pure loot money cycle the whole way up. There's nothing to unlock, nothing to earn, nothing to strive for but making number go up. Because anything you want, this shop has it. Following along with that, this tends to interact poorly with the traders. If your game is psychotically designed enough to have global item limits, then you get scalping as every bullet gets bought up by fat cats who resell it to the plebs at an insane markup. This can be accounted for with market limitations, and the inverse of too low prices will immediately be removed by arbitrage, as players buy up undervalued items and sell them back to the traders. Ignoring obvious oversights, this also allows for the market prices to rise as infinite items to infinite traders means infinite money. All of this is due to a word that the new cycle has allowed us to become very familiar with: inflation.
My quantitative
Unlike real economies, video game economies don't have scarcity. Gamers aren't actually extracting items from real locations. New locations are being generated with every game session, meaning given infinite time, more items and money will be generated forever, leading to an obvious problem. As supply infinitely increases and demand is unable to grow with it, items, gear, and money become inflated. This has a few major problems and to some degree is completely unavoidable. The main problem is how this affects risk. The hardcore sales pitch of these games is taking whatever you want, but if you die, you lose everything. That means that dying feels bad, which means staying alive is exhilarating. The lows define the highs. All that being said, once you have so much stuff that dying doesn't feel bad anymore, winning doesn't feel good either. A system that functions based on the idea that you want to gather items doesn't work when you don't care about the items. There are two primary solutions to this problem in extraction shooters. Number 1. Wiping. Another accidental invention of Escape from Tarkov, the game originally added wipes as a solution to a technical problem. As features were added, previous characters weren't compatible and progression would be deleted. All your guns, all your trader reputation, all your quest progress, gone. Fairly quickly, players didn't just grow accustomed to this system, they loved it. Wipes make everything scrappy again, and they remove all the negative effects of inflation. Grinding your way up to the top is the fun part, so developers roll the stone down the hill, allowing you to push it back up. But there's some obvious problems. Sitting at the top of the mountain, you want the ball rolling so you have something to do. But what if you're only a quarter of the way up? Then mean old Nikita kicks your knee out from under you and you get to start all over. The system works for hardcore grinders, Vineboom, but casual or even intermediate players will have tons of content locked off from them, and will probably just quit when they realize they can't accomplish their goals in time. The other is an opt-in prestige system. This fixes the wipe problems of forcing it on everyone, but it also misses out on a lot of the benefit. The cultural event of the wipe isn't something to just throw out. It creates a reference point for where the game is as a whole economically, and prestiging doesn't fix one of the main issues these systems are made for. The idea is we don't want a bunch of chads running around with infinite guns and gear, but we're removing them from the pool one at a time. The day a prestige system is added, maybe it has an effect, but when it's happening at everyone's own pace, you don't feel it unless you're the one doing it. And of course, there's always the third option of just leaving it alone. Money printer go brrrr. Rampant inflation. Oh well. This does actually have some upsides. Games like Arena Breakout will immediately be more accessible to casual players in terms of progression. There's swaths of players that will hear about a wipe system and immediately write the entire game off. I actually really like Arena Breakout's attempt to keep things cyclical by giving players high roller lobbies to burn their excess cash in, as well as separating lobbies by gear value. But I've also seen what late game player inventories look like, and I don't think it's working. Especially in a game where you can buy bullets that do more damage, having infinite money has some obvious gameplay implications that do not bode well for the 9-to-5ers. So has anyone actually done this shit right? Well, actually... Arc Raiders is so good I've derailed the video I'm working on to make a video about it twice now. And like with most other things in it, the economy addresses every one of the problems I've mentioned so far in novel ways that have completely absorbed me. First off, the money gear cycle attacked on two sides. Solution 1, the traders are fucking poor. Don't get me wrong, they have stuff you need, and all the essentials are here, along with some nice extras like Celeste selling crafting materials for seeds. But with the traders, you don't have access to 4 out of the 5 pink weapons, 3 out of 4 blue weapons, the Arpeggio, any tier 3 augment, and even consumables and utility like smoke and shields have fairly small daily restock limits. All of this serves to push you away from these losers and into two places. In raids where you can find the things you need, and to the workshop where the second solution lives. Items aren't money, and money aren't items. Right off the start, this means that things other than shiny gems and cryptocurrency have value.
Oh!
And they have different value to different people at different times. This combines with how intuitive and signposted the loot spawns are to make destinations appealing to players in need of things. Damn, I'm low on meds, I better hit a Lush Blooms and grab some plants. I crafted a bunch of augments, now I need processors for trigger nades, time to breach some server racks. The fantasy of these games is being a scavenger in an apocalyptic situation, and it works a lot better when you need stuff, not just treasure. Feeding perfectly into that is what I think is the most underrated part of this entire system, the recycling and refining mechanics. At the beginning of the game, you'll be taking higher tier items and breaking them down into higher amounts of lower tier resources that you can use for crafts. Then, as you need more higher tier parts, you can refine lower tier materials into those better items. This has a profound effect on the overall loot economy. There's almost no junk items. Worst case for most items is turning them into a stack of base material that's stacked to 50. Even late game, I've had to break the habit of looting every single item I see because none of them aren't worth it to some degree. On the other hand, even on the day of the expedition, I never had a surplus of everything I need. God help me, Celeste, I need more springs, please! Something I love in this game is that even streamers and hardcore grinders are constantly running out of something.
Hold on, we gotta get some batteries though. Oh shit. We're about to not be able to make these shields no more.
This is admittedly an outlier example, but watch Burn Peanut try to upgrade one of his 1,000 bobcats, and you'll quickly see that this game is not about grabbing pink items and dipping. Now for a dreaded topic. How do you fix the flea market? This one's actually pretty easy. Don't add the flea market. Although, while I was looking for a map, I stumbled upon this. I wouldn't normally cover this since it's outside the game, but I haven't seen anyone else cover it in detail, and I think having it understood by everyone is better than ignoring it. If you go on MetaForge, you can attach your Embark account to their website and trade with other players for rare items and blueprints and the like. As far as I'm aware, Embark doesn't have any objections to these systems, but they also take no responsibility for them. I don't imagine they'll cause many problems, but we'll cover externalities in a moment. You list an item or request an item with a price, and the website throws you into DMs with each other where you agree on a price, usually paid in seeds since they convert cleanly into currency. Once you agree to the trade, you're given each other's IDs and you enter a raid together, drop the items for each other, then leave. In order to stop people getting scammed, you rate each other after the trade. So you could probably rip someone off once, but I doubt you'd be allowed to trade again if you did. This isn't a bad way to get a specific blueprint or something you need, but I think if most players use the system, there would quickly be some problems. The main one is, because seeds are an easily dropped currency, sources of them would quickly become contested. I for one really like clearing out the seed vault in solos, but if everyone was trying to farm for BP cash, I think that would change very quickly. I also haven't done much of these trades because I don't want my own game turning into rushing the seed vault and farming a single item. That brings us right back into the money gear cycle. You farm seeds that convert to items and gear and BPs and whatever you want. I for one have looted a few blueprints since using the site and checked the prices on them out of curiosity. And I've made a deliberate effort not to throw myself off the deep end and ruin the much better economy of the game itself. I do think it's nice to have a backstop system for when you just absolutely cannot find the one BP you really need. But I'd be much happier with some sort of research system than I am with seed vault farming. Smaller projects like the expeditions, but to target specific blueprints, could really help with people getting important stuff locked away for too long. Regardless, if you do use these sites, use caution in terms of getting scammed, and use caution not to ruin your own fun by day trading BPs instead of, playing the game. Hey there, Editing Anvil here. For some godforsaken reason, the games journalism industry still pays Dean Takahashi, yes, the Cuphead tutorial guy, and he recently had an interview with the CEO of Embark, Patrick Soderlund. During it, they briefly discussed player-to-player trading.
Did you guys ever think about having a lot more trading and marketplace things in the game?
We're going to want to do more of that because it's fun. It's a good part of the game, and I agree with you. We should do a lot more of the trading component of the game. Also allow people to trade amongst each other, etc. I think it's fun.
Unfortunately, Patrick seems really on board with adding this kind of system, and I really hope that during testing or at some point in the process they reconsider. This isn't a small decision, and it will ripple throughout the entire economy, and it will bleed down into a significantly more static and boring economy for the players. Very, very harsh limits like only allowing blueprints to be traded could make it workable, but if it's liquid money for stuff, I think the gameplay loop of Arc Raiders is going to take a massive hit. Putting that aside, we've already covered the traders. But to reiterate, weapons are fairly restricted from the traders, as well as decent stuff being available in limited quantities before daily restocks. The traders are a consistent baseline option. They allow for low to mid-tier kits and allow you to fill the gaps in your kit if you're missing something. Let's do a little experiment. What is the best kit you can get from only the traders? Starting with augments, Lance offers one of each blue augment per restock. And for the sake of the heavy shield, let's take the Combat Mark II along with said heavy shield. With that, we take meds, and we can also get a stack of nice bandages. I'm personally not one for the blue ones, and we'll also add some surgery chargers. The only blue weapon available is the Renegade, so we'll take that, and depending on the mission, we could secondary with a Hullcracker with an Il Toro. But it's important to keep in mind these are all level 1 weapons. But we can get some decent attachments, including a suppressor and a purple stock. I know the graphic has a green stock. I fucked it up when I made it. Can we just ignore it? Apollo also has decent utility items, including smoke grenades, trailblazers, zip lines, and a deadline. All that done, we have a pretty decent kit if you ignore our weapons being level 1, until you consider the price. Even ignoring utility and going moderate on healing, we're looking at 93,000. And if you were to bring some smokes, trailblazers, and zip lines, you could easily bump that up to 125. With that done though, what if we couldn't buy any restock items? Well, looks like we're all the way back down to a green augment. We'll go looting and green shield since we can't get a medium shield anyway. A stack of meds of course, but now we can't get the level 4 Pharaoh from Tien Wen since it's on restock. So we'll grab a Stitcher and a Pharaoh, both level 1. We can still get ammo, but no attachments. Lance has meds, but the only util we can get is Raider Flares and Impact Nades, so I wouldn't bother with Apollo. Pretty rough, huh? Even though we're bringing basically nothing, those meds add up, and a stack of the cheap stuff still brings the total up to 30k. And at this point, I'm running a free kit. The first kit is devastating financially, and the second one is just kind of bad. Of course, you can mix and match to make a budget-friendly kit, but if you're running it consistently, you're gonna bump into that restock, and that's the point. You aren't supposed to rely on these traders to get everything you need. I think with this example, it's clear that looting and crafting are extremely important to having good equipment. And the top level of kit is just straight up not available without crafting. Alright, now that we have an understanding of the importance of looting and crafting, that means that looting enemy gear is now more important. So how does Arc Raiders avoid making it a tedious nightmare? There's one vital change and a bunch of small ones. Guns and augments take up 1 slot each. None of this Tetris tomfoolery trying to fit square pegs in different sized square holes. The only remaining punishment for looting gear here is weight, and that weight can be mitigated depending on perks and augments. And the guns themselves can be converted to useful materials like everything else. The incentives are the opposite of the games I mentioned earlier. Not only do weapons only take a single slot, they contain attachment slots, meaning you can loot even more stuff per slot via attachments. This means the upcycling and downcycling from the crafting system exists in Raid 2. I can carry a gun specifically to put attachments in the slots, or I can disassemble 4 guns and put the gun parts in 1 slot of inventory, which saves me all that room. In addition to that, there's also upgrades. Gun upgrades get more expensive as the tiers increase. Let's use a Venator as an example. To craft a Venator costs 2 advanced mechanical components, 3 medium gun parts, and 5 magnets. To upgrade it to level 2 costs 1 advanced mechanical component and 2 medium gun parts. That's basically half the cost of the gun. To get a level 3 costs the same, and to go to level 4 costs 2 of each. Putting aside the magnets for simplicity, this means a level 1 Venator costs 2 advanced mechanical and 3 gun parts, while the level 4 costs 6 advanced mechanical and 9 medium gun parts. And I can take it a step further. If you break down those mechanical parts, they cost 2 springs and 2 mechanical components each. That's 12 springs of mechanical components plus 36 simple gun parts to make the medium parts. You can't craft simple gun parts or springs, and those mechanical components cost 7 metal and 3 rubber to make, totaling 84 metal and 36 rubber. Meaning in raw materials, when you loot a Venator 4, that's the equivalent of 84 metal, 36 rubber, 12 springs, and 36 simple gun parts in 1 slot of inventory. Oh, and 5 magnets. Don't forget the magnets.
Shut up, Arthur.
Looting guns isn't just more convenient in this game, it's obscenely rewarding. Now for the big bad. How did Embark deal with inflation? Arc Raiders has a unique hybrid of prestiging and wiping called the Expedition system. Throughout a season, players can donate a fat chunk of different resources and specific items in order to prep an expedition. At the end of the season, they get a week-long window to commit to it, and if they do, at the end of the window, their character, their equipment, their skills, their blueprints, everything is deleted. But the twist on the formula is that you don't have to do it. This means that casual players who would normally be screwed over by wipes are protected. But wait, didn't we already have this with the Prestige system? How does this help? Instead of removing players one at a time as they desire from the Chad side of the pool, you get an event! Ignoring rewards for the moment, this change on its own is enough to make people that wouldn't normally do it be willing to. Hardcore grindy people will just throw themselves at prestige systems for something to do, but most people will burn out along the way and just do something else. Expeditions are an exercise in balancing fear of missing out. If the rewards are completely worthless, no one will want to give up what they have. But if it's too strong, then it may be optional, but it feels terrible to people who don't want to do it. And for the most part, I think they nailed it, with one extremely major caveat. The rewards for the expedition are as follows. 1 season increases to repair, XP, and materials from Scrappy in order to help you grind your way back up a bit faster. An icon next to your name that shows people you're cool, a hat for your chicken, 12 stash slots, and this absolutely drippy patchwork outfit. That's all chill and most people aren't complaining, but there's also a controversial one. The skill points. Extra max skill points can be earned up to 5, 1 for every million space dollars you have between your stash value and actual currency. Oh, it accounts for items? Problem solved, right? Not exactly. If you go on Reddit or YouTube comments, you'll learn what I already know. The extremely large success and accessibility of Arc Raiders has led to their community being a little bit fucking stupid. The primary objection I see raised is that this is too much money for a casual player to earn. To which I respond, Fucking duh. This is the absolute maximum the game is asking of anyone. It's not for you if you're a casual player. I had 200 hours played when the expedition hit. I've been playing this game borderline full time since it came out, and I've made 2 videos on it. I got 2 out of the 5 skill points. It's there so that hardcore grinders have something to do. The rest of the game is paced for more casual play. You don't need to rush to do things like you do in Escape from Tarkov, and that's good. But you can't say you don't want to have to play the game a lot to do literally every single minuscule thing in the game. Taking the roller coaster out of the park because some people aren't tall enough to ride it is more fair, but it fucking sucks. But stupid objections don't make the system smart. One of the biggest problems in games like these for certain players is gear fear. You can't have your cake and eat it too, so players choose to hoard dump trucks full of cake with the idea that someday they'll get around to eating it. The expedition is supposed to be that opportunity. I had a kinetic converter on a level 4 Torrente for a while, and once I had committed my expedition, I decided now was the time to use it. As I went to queue for the game, there was a little message next to the ready button. Losing these items may impact the value of your expedition. Here I was, prepared to put things on the line and ball out at the end of a long journey of grinding. And the game looked at me and said, but what if you lose it? But what if you lose it? But what if you lose it? This is the exact opposite of the kind of behavior a wipe should be encouraging. The cyclical nature of these things is what keeps them interesting. Like I said earlier, you want a graph going up to the right with spikes that go up and down along the path. But when someone realizes that any gear they bring in is a liability to big number going up, and the game explicitly tells them as much, that means you have people with inventories that look like this running free kits. And that's fucking stupid and boring. Speaking of free kits, I should give them a mention. Without any cooldowns or cost, you can load into any map with a free kit made up of a tier 1 gray weapon, 1 bandage, 1 shield charger, and 2 utility items. The storage space on these kits is extremely limited, but each of the possible weapons is capable of killing an enemy in 1 magazine if you ignore the Pharaoh. Some people think these are too good, but I disagree. Free kits are clearly at a disadvantage in fights while still having a fighting chance, with absolutely no sustainability. If you get into a poke fight with a free kit, you will out-heal them every time. The ability to immediately load back in after a bad run is a really good feature for the game, and I wouldn't remove it under any circumstances. However, when the incentives are flipped around and the goal is to make money go up, then free kits become too powerful to ignore. Nothing ventured, everything gained. I've heard suggestions that the expedition should count how much value you've extracted from raids, and that's not a terrible solution. Hoarding cannot be encouraged in a game like this. It's such a bad idea. Like I said though, I've just ignored it for the most part and made sure not to dip below 2 million. I definitely think the option of simply ignoring the skill points isn't being acknowledged by some of the more upset individuals, but everything that's good about this game's economy goes out the window if you're running free kits for cash. While I'm editing, I just want to throw in this funny thing I've noticed. No matter what the argument is, from gun balance to PvP to markets to skill points, everyone making a point about this game always has to threaten the game with death, and despite most of these things not really being changed much from launch, the game's still doing fucking crazy numbers. I don't know, just something to think about. Now that I've spent this time thinking about it, I think most of the economic problems in Arc Raiders are actually just regular balance problems. Sure, Venator 4 is better than a Stitcher 4, but the issue is that that doesn't really usually matter. It's important not to push too far in this conversation though. We've seen games where the level of gear is much more important than the skill of the player, and this game is clearly trying to give the little guy a fighting chance, which is a good thing. High tier guns in general don't seem to be worth the economic investment though, especially pink weapons. That doesn't mean the system for upgrading and crafting are bad, it means something needs tuning somewhere. I struggle in my head with the time to kill in this game in general. It's clearly balanced for trios and I don't mind that, but in solos especially, things like weapon upgrades feel really redundant when the guy who sees the other guy first usually wins a lot. I really like to see how the game would play out with a flat increase to shield health or damage reduction or something, but I worry that the system in place could start wobbling if you gave the TTK too much weight. The actual differences between weapons seem fine, but the differences in practical situations end up being so small that it's hard to justify upgrades. Also, side note, fuck trigger grenades. We need a timer on those or something. Every other grenade gives you time to react, and a few of them are more expensive and do less damage. They are simply unmatched as a weapon in this game. Fun thing about taking this long on a video, shit I mentioned can get addressed while I'm working. Embark says they're looking at Stitcher Kettle and trigger grenade nerfs, which I think would put the free kits in a much better spot. If you want more elaboration on the trigger grenade problem, I recommend this video by Jesse Kazan that came out during my editing. On the other hand, combat augments all kind of suck, and I don't really see anyone using any of them ever. Fairly minor gripes aside, I think Embark Studios are a rare breed of developer where they're big enough to produce high-fidelity, well-thought-out games, while still being small enough not to collapse under their weight and push systems that actually seem like they've had time put into them. I fucking love this game, and I hope they're able to patch up the boat before any one hole gets too big. On that topic, I think the speed that bugs get patched really needs a ramp up. The content schedule is totally fine by me, but I saw some complaining about the people in Stella Montes ceiling like a month ago, and it just happened to me on New Year's, let alone the dreaded fucking rat spot in the Seed Vault extract. Speaking of economies, if you enjoyed this video and want to support me, consider checking out my Patreon and YouTube memberships. Members and patrons get early sponsor-free access to all my videos, as well as access to my Google Drive so you can see the videos I make ahead of time and the dozens that I never will. Special thanks to Cookie, Ryden, Sapast, Amanda Lick, Big Nuts 1562, Omega Flash, Mariano Rabufo, M Shark, Sunday Roast, Yato God, Mythic Wombat, Stefan, Sark Malark, Submarine Guy, Hayden, Robert Lucas, Days Canadian, and Sea Trouble. Thanks to anyone and everyone who watched this whole thing through. I don't take it for granted. And as always, subscribe to my fucking YouTube channel.